I got pregnant with the boss's kid. I'll be taking over as the boss's wife. In that moment, something inside me snapped. Sarah, my husband's mistress, had been mocking me, flaunting her youth and trying to assert her superiority relentlessly. She even took my job as the president's secretary, and now she was aiming for my husband. Well, I wouldn't hold back anymore. I would make sure they'd both plummeted to the depths of hell. I decided to bless Philip and Sarah. I signed the divorce papers that Philip handed me, of course receiving a hefty compensation. They got married in Italy with a grand ceremony. Things changed a week later when I got a frantic call from Sarah. "Hey, Philip hasn't come home." As his ex-wife, you must know where he is, right? Sarah's voice was frantic. I laughed maliciously, just as I had expected. I kept quiet, but I exposed my husband's terrible secrets. My name is Rose, a 58-year-old working housewife. I worked as the president's secretary at my husband Philip's company. Every day at 6 o'clock a.m., I would wake up earlier than my husband to prepare breakfast, then head to work alone, tidying up and cleaning the president's office. I wanted Philip to work comfortably. At 8 o'clock a.m., Philip would arrive at the president's office. "Thank you, Rose. You cleaned again today," he would say. I approached Philip and retied his tie. "It's fine, dear. You want to work in a clean room, right?" "That's right," Philip would respond. Philip and I were married through an acquaintance's introduction. We hadn't been blessed with children, but we lived together, supporting each other. This year marked our 30th wedding anniversary. The company, taken over by Philip from his father-in-law, was stable, and I had no complaints about our life. "By the way, the new business you planned, Joseph is going to fund it. The transfer was confirmed earlier." "That's great. Joe seems to like you. Your negotiating helped a lot," Philip would say. The company was run by Philip as the president and his brother as the chairman. Philip called his brother Joseph Joe. "Remember, Joseph funded another business you planned before. Aren't you proceeding with that?" I casually asked, and Philip looked annoyed. "It's fine. I'll handle it." "Okay. Nothing special on today's schedule, right?" "Yes, because you mentioned it before." Philip would smile contentedly. Good, good. Then, Rose, there's someone I want to introduce to you. I'll bring them here, so wait for me." "Understood. Someone to introduce?" I felt a sense of discomfort at his words. Soon, I heard laughter from the hallway. Philip's voice and another young woman's voice. As I wondered about their friendly demeanor, the office door opened. "Kept you waiting, huh, Rose?" Philip said with a pleased look. I forgot to respond to Philip, fixated on the woman sitting next to him. A very young woman. Her hair was long and neatly arranged, and she was dressed in a miniskirt that revealed her thighs and a camisole that exposed her chest. It was as if she was dressed for a night out. However, she wore it impressively, and I was astounded by her youth. "This is Sarah. She'll be working here from today." "Nice to meet you." I was dumbfounded. Is this a joke? My husband introducing a young woman to me? This alone was bad for my heart. Moreover, we didn't hire fresh graduates. "Excuse me, but how old is Sarah?" "She's 23. I met her at a bar with friends. We hit it off, and she's young and fresh, gives me energy. Don't you think she'll boost the morale of our employees?" Ah, yes, he must be serious. Unable to say anything in front of my husband's radiant expression, I felt my heart sink. "Then, Rose, please teach Sarah the ropes." "Ah, Sarah is going to work as a general employee, right? Then wouldn't it be better if—" "Oh, I forgot to mention, we're going to have 2 secretaries from now on. So please teach Sarah the secretary work." 2 secretaries? Is that necessary?" "Well, you're getting on in years. It's okay to pass on work to the younger ones." Philip laughed lightly, and it pained my heart. "Age, the way you say it. Then take care. I'm going out for a bit on a personal errand. I'm counting on you to show her the ropes." With that, Philip left Sarah and me alone in the president's office. I took a deep breath to calm myself. Once Philip decides on something, he tends to rush into it and spectacularly fail, only to regret it later. This has happened often throughout our marriage. It's useless to say anything at times like this. For now, I'll just do as he says. It's bound not to work out anyway. Hey, Rose, Sarah tapped my shoulder. Yes. How old are you, Rose? Feeling it was wrong not to answer after asking her age, I told her the truth. I'll be 58 this year. But it seemed my sincere feelings did not reach Sarah. What? You're as old as my grandmother. Poor thing, you could die any time, and yet you still work. That's kind of sad. I gave a smile. I like my job. It's not sad. Sad. Ah, I see. The sad one is the boss, right? Whether he's at home or at work, he's always with an old woman. Really, poor thing. With each word she said next, my face grew more strained. What exactly are you trying to say? You don't get it. I guess when you get older, your brain starts to slow down. Sarah let out a big sigh and clearly said, being young and beautiful is what really matters. I have higher status than an old lady like you understand, right? Her smile was full of confidence, and I shivered. I couldn't stay silent any longer. You should learn some common sense. Ah, did I make you angry? Is it menopause? She laughed. See, you get angry so quickly. It must be hard to keep working if you get upset over such things. Plus, with menopause, you sweat a lot and get short of breath, right? It's embarrassing to try so hard. Maybe it's time for you to retire. As I stood dumbfounded, Sarah laughed and whispered in my ear, why don't you retire as the president's wife too? Lotta. I shuddered. This person intends to take Phillip away from me. I couldn't help but raise my voice. Enough is enough. With that kind of intention, I can't teach you anything. Leave the company right now. I expected a quarrel, but Sarah looked at me with tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. What? I just wanted to get along with you, Rose, and made a joke, but it was too much. Sarah collapsed to the floor, sobbing. She looked like the heroine of a tragedy. I'll leave this company. Thank you for everything. Sarah ran out of the room. What is happening? I was overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events. I stood there dumbfounded until Sarah returned with a red-faced Phillip in tow. What are you doing? His sudden yell made me tremble. What's wrong, dear? I heard from Sarah. You yelled at her. It's because she said something terrible. Don't lie. I've been listening to your conversation. Sarah had recorded our argument on her mobile phone. The recording started from the moment I scolded Sarah, giving the impression that I suddenly blamed her without reason and made her cry. That's why she apologized so sincerely, sobbing and all. I bit my lip in frustration. You don't believe me? Believe you? Sarah came to me crying about what you did. There's a recording. It's clear whose words have more credibility. A secretary who bullies employees is fired as of today. I couldn't believe it. I had always supported Phillip, both at home and at work. He would abandon me for Sarah, who just joined the company. Wait, then who will do the secretary's job? It's decided. Sarah will do it. That's impossible. And what about you? I swallowed the words that had almost slipped out. I tried again in a way that only Phillip and I would understand. You know about your hobby. I'll handle that myself. I prefer pure and cute Sarah over you, who lies to me, the president. Besides, a young and beautiful girl like her suits me better than you do, don't you think? Phillip narrowed his eyes happily and looked at Sarah beside him. Sarah looked up at Phillip with adoration and flashed a brilliant smile, then turned to me and stuck out her tongue just a little. I protested to Phillip many times, but he wouldn't listen at all. The job of a secretary is not easy. Sarah can't handle it, I insisted. All I got back were his overly optimistic words, saying it was an exaggeration or you won't know until you try. He must think he's become a knight protecting his princess. I was speechless at his foolishness, hardly what you'd expect from someone running a company. Eventually, Phillip threw out my personal items from my workspace. Instead, he arranged a brand new desk and cute stationery for young people, all for Sarah. It was all in vain. Realizing this, I decided not to waste any more effort and left the company. However, Phillip didn't come home that night. He didn't return my calls either. I thought it was just his way of getting back at me, but as a week, a month, 3 months passed, I grew anxious. One day, I was called to the company by Phillip and was heading to the president's office. Maybe he's finally understood how hard the secretary's job was. Thinking he might have decided to let Sarah go and call me back, I knocked on the president's office door with a sliver of hope. "Come in." As I opened the door, I was met with an unbelievable scene. Phillip, smiling happily, holding hands with Sarah beside him. The two of them looked at me and laughed joyously. "It's been a while, Rose. We have some big news today." "What is it?" "Actually, Then Sarah put a hand over Philip's mouth. "Let me say it, okay? I want to thank the wife, right?" Philip nodded deeply, and Sarah said to me with a beaming smile, "We're getting married. Thank you for everything you've done for Philip." "What?" In front of my shaking self, Philip laughed sheepishly. "No, I thought there's no point in hiding it. I'm thinking of starting a second life. You're getting too old. It's better for you to live quietly by yourself." "What? Is that how you dare you?" I felt as if the blood had drained from my body. "Wait a minute, Rose. The talk isn't over yet. Here, a present. I made a copy for you." Sarah handed me a few sheets of paper. They were printed with black and white photos. Seeing them, I felt sick. "This? Ultrasound? Don't tell me." Sarah nodded slowly and gently stroked her belly as she came closer and whispered in my ear, "I got pregnant with Philip's child. I'll be taking over as the president's wife. Lotta." At that moment, something inside me snapped. She had mocked me, flaunted her youth, and tried to assert her superiority at every turn. She even took my job as the president's secretary, and now she was aiming for Philip. Well, I won't hold back anymore. I'll make sure they both plummet to the depths of hell. I decided to bless Philip and Sarah. I signed the divorce papers that Philip handed to me. Of course, I received a hefty compensation. They had a grand wedding in Italy. Things changed a week later when I got a frantic call from Sarah. "Hey, Philip hasn't come home." "As his ex-wife, you must know where he is, right?" I laughed maliciously, just as I had expected. I kept quiet for a moment, then said, "Philip is indulging in his favorite hobby. He's probably in Vegas right now." "Vegas? What do you mean?" "Ever heard of it? There's this big hotel in Las Vegas with a casino. Philip always rushes there whenever he has a chance." Sarah gasped. "Does that mean?" "Yes, Philip is probably gambling right now. I was the one who carefully scheduled his time to prevent him from getting too involved. It seems the new secretary was kept in the dark. He didn't want to show his bad side, spending the money he earned on gambling." Sarah was silent, seemingly in shock. I let out a small laugh. "I'm actually thankful to you." "What?" "Philip started getting into gambling these past few years. It seems someone from a new business partner invited him." "And what about it?" "Before you came along, there was still a bit of affection left in Philip. I was worried about him falling deeper, but now I've completely cut him off. Taking such a low man off my hands and even giving me a hefty compensation, there couldn't have been a better opportunity. Thanks to you, I can enjoy my second life. Lotta." I laughed heartily. I could hear Sarah breathing heavily over the phone. "Don't you dare joke about this, getting all high and mighty. Goodbye. You have a tough road ahead as the president's wife," I said sarcastically, and hung up on Sarah, ignoring her shouting from the other end. A few days later, as I was relaxing in my new condo, the doorbell rang. Could it be a delivery? I hadn't ordered anything suspicious. I looked through the peephole, and there stood my ex-husband Philip, his face red with anger. "You're there, aren't you, Rose? How dare you tell Sarah about the gambling?" "Ah, the gambling," I said, understanding the situation. "I decided to let Philip in. He must have hired a detective to find my address, and running away now would only lead to him chasing me again. I might as well settle things here. I had important information to share with him. I prepared a clear file of documents before opening the door." "It's been a while, hasn't it?" I greeted him with a graceful smile. "What do you mean, it's been a while? After you ruined my family, how can you still smile?" Philip was furious, shouting and trying to intimidate me, but such tactics don't work on a wife of many years. "Oh my, why are you so red-faced? What happened?" "It's none of your business." I chuckled. He came here just to vent his anger, but I could see through what had happened between them. You must have had a fight with your wife. Shut up. Sarah must be unhappy with most of your income going to gambling. She told you she would manage the finances, and you're on an allowance now, right? Philip froze in shock. How? How do you know that? Did you plant a bug or something? I burst into laughter. You did the same thing with me. When your gambling came to light, you said, "What's wrong with spending the money I earned on my hobby?" You must have repeated the same with Sarah, leading to a fight, and now you're taking it out on me. Philip clenched his fists and fell silent. Don't underestimate a wife of 30 years, I thought to myself, seeing his frustrated face. You should be thankful I managed your schedule as your secretary. I minimized your gambling time to save you from ruin. Can a naive 23-year-old do that well? Well, you have no choice but to let her try. You're having a child, after all. At that word, Philip's face lit up. Yes, Sarah and I are having a child. Unlike you, who's infertile, she can give me an heir. You lost as a woman, he said triumphantly. That's great for you. We're happy. Don't try to ruin my family again. I came here to warn you today. Philip pointed at me, saying so. I tilted my head, puzzled. Me, ruin it? I have no such intention. In fact, I'm thinking of helping you. Help me. Philip looked perplexed, clearly at a loss. Did you go with Sarah to the gynecologist? Huh, that place is for women. Sarah said she wanted to go alone, so I didn't accompany her. You saw the ultrasound photo, right? The glossy, thick photo paper. No, the one I saw was just thin, regular paper. I pulled out the clear file, handing it to Philip. Take a closer look. These are real ultrasound photos. Sarah's been deceiving you. Philip's face drained of color as he examined the documents. What is this? It's proof that Sarah's not pregnant. She's been manipulating you all along. Philip stood there, speechless, as the reality of the situation sank in. I thought so. I presented Philip with several photos I had pulled from a clear file. They were grainy black and white ultrasound images of a baby. Philip's eyes widened. What? You're pregnant? Of course not. This was a gift from Sarah. She's quite prepared, isn't she? Printing these out from the internet for me. Internet? Philip looked puzzled. I handed him a piece of paper. It was a printout of a blog post from 2 years ago. The post was a pregnancy announcement with ultrasound photos. Compare this with the earlier photo. Notice anything? After looking back and forth between the photo and the article, Philip's face turned pale. You don't mean? That's right. I matched the copied photo from the article with Sarah's ultrasound photo. Holding them up to the light, the baby silhouette in the noise matched perfectly. Do you know about image search? It's a feature that searches the internet for images similar to the one you have. I found this blog using it. She must have copied the article directly, cutting out the photo neatly. So the child. Philip went pale, looking like he might collapse. I decided it was time to deliver the final blow. It's a lie. There's no one in her belly. Philip collapsed to his knees. No, that can't be. She wouldn't lie about something like that. Impossible. After everything I bought for her, designer clothes, bags, even an expensive engagement ring, Philip vented his confused emotions by repeatedly hitting the floor with his fist. His actions were so ridiculous, I couldn't help but smile. It's a shame you couldn't become a father. When you think about it, considering your age, it's doubtful you could have fathered a child. Thinking a young partner would guarantee a child was naive. Ask Sarah for the truth. I'll call her over now. Philip was too drained to argue. He just slumped there, silent. I had Sarah come to the condominium soon after. The doorbell rang, and I opened the door. Upon seeing me with Philip, she screamed. What are you doing here? Trying to take Philip back from me. No, didn't I say I was thankful to you? I have a baby in my belly. You can't tear us apart. Sarah screamed triumphantly, ignoring me. She entered and gently embraced Philip's shoulder. Are you okay? Let's go back and talk about the money. I'll manage the finances. That's okay, right? We'll overcome this trial together. After all, in my belly. Shut up. Philip slowly stood up. He looked at Sarah intently and quietly said, the pregnancy is a lie, isn't it? Sarah's face contorted noticeably. What? What are you talking about, honey? Tell me the truth, Sarah. The pregnancy is real. I showed you the ultrasound photo. Our child is the fruit of our love. How can you deny that? Sarah sat on the floor, breaking down in tears. Then she raised her head and glared sharply at me. You must have filled his head with weird ideas. You're just jealous because you're old and I'm young and beautiful, Sarah huffed arrogantly. I laughed back at her. Is that all you have to say? Huh? Hey, Philip, let's just go home, okay? Sarah tried to pull Philip's arm, but he brushed her off. Enough, Sarah. Huh? Philip thrust the blog post copy and the ultrasound photo at Sarah. There's no escaping the truth now. I trusted you. How could you lie about something like this? I was so happy. Then Sarah's expression vanished. Hey, Philip. What? Philip looked at me with wet eyes, his gaze upward, seeking sympathy. I just wanted to test your love for me. I was afraid I was just being played with. That's why I said I was pregnant. Then, Philip, you said you wanted me to have it, right? I was so happy. Sarah's radiant smile left Philip speechless. So, the lie was because you love me. That's right. We can start working on having a child now. My beauty and your brains. It'll be a wonderful child, eventually becoming a president and earning lots of money. That's not going to happen. I brought Philip and Sarah back to reality from their little world. Hey, we're having a moment here. Do you really think this man has money? I asked calmly. Of course, he's a president, after all. I see. Indeed, our company has been passed down through generations and isn't doing badly, but that's about the company as a whole. This man is a gambler. Do you understand what that means? Sarah's face turned pale as she clung to Philip. Hey, Philip, you're rich, right? You told me once we're married we'd live a wealthy life because you have more money than you know what to do with. Philip responded in a faltering voice, It's okay. I've lost some money gambling, but we're starting a new business soon. That'll be our big break. What are you talking about? I interrupted, pointing out Philip's blatant lies. I know for a fact there's no new business venture planned. What do you mean? You got funding from Joseph recently, right? Where is that money now? Surely it wasn't spent on luxury brands and an engagement ring for a new wife. I glared at Philip. That's not something I would do, Philip protested. He laughed derisively, though his voice trembled. I sighed briefly. You embezzled the company's money. Philip swallowed hard under my steady gaze. I've had suspicions. You've been talking about new ventures and getting funding from Joseph, but no business ever materializes, just one failed venture after another. It was odd not to doubt, so I spoke with Joseph to gather solid evidence. You and Joseph teamed up against me. The money Joe transferred that day was a decoy. You transferred the business funds directly into your own bank account this time. Usually, you're more careful, using various accounts to avoid detection. Were you that desperate to prove to Sarah that you're wealthy? Philip fumbled for words, confirming my suspicions. I delivered the final blow. You're done. Get arrested and live as a criminal for the rest of your life. Shut up. It's a family matter. It'll probably just end with probation. Besides, Joe will bail me out. Even if I'm charged, I'll be out in no time. Philip reassured himself. How do you know all this? You were supposed to be fired. You'd have nothing to do with this, Philip demanded. Joseph told me. Joe did. Yeah, it's me. Joseph hired me. Philip's mouth dropped open in surprise. I explained calmly. Yes, when he heard you dumped me, Joseph contacted me immediately. He apologized for your terrible actions and asked if he could hire me back. I accepted right away. You didn't know? Joe is keeping it from me? That bastard. Philip fumed. I'm grateful to Joseph. He put me in charge of schedule management, and I'm earning more than before. I flashed a broad smile, which only made Philip grit his teeth. That Joe, I'll confront him right now. As Philip was about to leave, Sarah grabbed his arm with surprising force, pulling him toward her. Their faces were inches apart. Her expression was cold and calculating. Hey, you, Sarah's voice was low and menacing. You lied to me, flaunting your wealth, but in reality, you're just an old criminal. Don't mess with me. Philip was taken aback by Sarah's sudden aggression. Taking a deep breath, he tried to reassure her. But it's okay. I'll probably just get probation and come home. Even if I'm out of the company, we can still be happy without money if we're together. Don't joke with me, Sarah snapped, shaking off Philip's hand. There's no way a beautiful young woman like me would stay with a penniless old man like you. I only pretended to be pregnant to get us married. What a waste of time. With that, Sarah shoved Philip aside and stormed out of the room. Sarah, wait for me. Philip called after her, but she ignored him, slamming the door behind her. Left alone, Philip stood at the entrance like a ghost. I addressed him with a firm tone. Please leave. This is my house now. Rose, can't we start over? Me as the president and you as the secretary, like before. Philip pleaded, trying to charm me with a hopeful smile. I shook my head firmly. It's impossible. I hate you. I never want to see your face again, I said, my voice filled with finality. Philip's eyes widened in shock, and he started to tremble. That's enough, I added, opening the door and pushing him out. I locked it behind him and turned on the TV, letting the noise fill the silence. Philip left the condominium quietly, realizing it was all over. Later, Philip was arrested. He had mistakenly believed that Joseph would bail him out, but that hope proved futile. Instead, he found himself in a cold jail cell alone. Philip was charged with embezzling funds entrusted to him by Joseph. He had misled suppliers and companies, seeking loans under false pretenses and diverting the money into his personal account. His sentence was severe, with no chance of probation, and he faced several years behind bars. As for Sarah, she was investigated for her involvement with Philip. Although no direct evidence of conspiracy was found, the police uncovered that she had been scamming money from wealthy men. Sarah had approached affluent individuals in bars, pretending to be their girlfriend, and then claiming she needed money for fake emergencies such as a pregnancy or a parent's surgery. Both Philip and Sarah ended up in custody. Months later, I continued to work closely with Joseph, helping to restore the company's reputation after the scandal. Rebuilding the company was challenging, but I felt a deep sense of gratitude for Joseph's support. One evening, after a series of business dinners, Joseph sank into his chair with a tired sigh. It's been a long day, he said. But thanks to you, Rose, the dinner was a success. The restaurant you picked was perfect. The clients appreciated the healthy yet luxurious meal, and none of them knew about it beforehand, which made it even better. I smiled at him. I'm glad it went well. You're too kind. Joseph, always calm and composed, had a gentle charm that I found appealing. It's surprising to think someone as capable as you was once married to Philip, he remarked with a smile. Former spouse, I corrected him lightly. I have no connection with him anymore. Right, Joseph said. By the way, how long do you plan to keep working? Have you thought about retiring and enjoying a quieter life? I replied with a smile, I love my work. As long as I'm physically able, I want to keep working. Joseph nodded in agreement. I'm glad to hear that. I want you to help me rebuild this company. It will be a long journey, but I'm counting on you. I nodded firmly. Yes, Joseph, I'm looking forward to it. Joseph laughed, his amusement warming my heart. Seeing his smile, I felt hopeful and excited about my new beginning. My second life was truly starting to look promising.